We wake up every day to a world that's louder than ever, notifications buzzing, headlines flashing, opinions flying at us from every direction. There's a pressure, subtle, constant, to keep up, to respond, to be part of the noise. But in the midst of all that chaos, there's something far more valuable than attention, more rare than praise, and that's inner peace. See, outer noise is seductive. It calls to your ego. It tells you that you need to prove something. That if you're not seen, you're not successful. That if you're not reacting, you're falling behind. The world convinces us to chase things that glitter on the surface, but leave us empty when the lights go down. It tells us that we have to be louder to matter more. But peace, real peace, it doesn't scream, it doesn't perform. It's quiet, steady, and powerful in its stillness. It's that feeling you get when you're alone and you're not searching for the next escape. When you're not trying to impress, not trying to win an argument, not trying to be right, just grounded, just being. Inner peace is built in silence. It's found when you stop letting the opinions of others control the volume of your own voice. It's what happens when you begin to listen to yourself, not your fears, not your doubts, but that calm, consistent part of you that already knows what matters. To choose inner peace is to say no to the noise. It's choosing not to chase every opportunity, not to attend every argument you're invited to, not to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It's knowing the difference between being seen and being aligned. And most of the time, the loud path isn't the aligned one. When you're chasing outer noise, the approval, the validation, the applause, you end up living for others. You shape yourself to fit their expectations. You trade your truth for their comfort. But when you start valuing your peace more than their praise, that's when everything changes. You begin living for something deeper, something real. Peace doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you disconnect or stop engaging with the world. It means you choose what's worth your energy. You speak when it serves your growth. You act when it serves your purpose. You rest when the world expects you to perform. Outer noise wants urgency. Inner peace wants intention. Outer noise thrives on comparison. Inner peace knows your path is yours alone. Outer noise is temporary. A flash, a trend, a headline. But inner peace, that's your foundation. It's what keeps you steady when everything else is shaking. It's not glamorous. It's not marketable. But it's everything. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to match the world's volume just to be heard. Sometimes the strongest move is to say nothing, to sit still, to choose yourself in silence. Growth isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with big announcements or dramatic breakthroughs. Most of the time, real self-growth happens in places no one sees, behind closed doors, in long silences, in the spaces where it's just you, your thoughts, and the choices you make when no one's watching. We live in a culture obsessed with visibility. Share your goals, show your progress. Broadcast your grind. But the truth is, transformation rarely happens in the spotlight. The spotlight demands performance. Growth demands privacy. In the quiet, there's no audience to impress, no expectations to meet, no pressure to perform. Just you raw, honest, unfiltered. That's where the real work begins. The quiet is uncomfortable for most. That silence starts to echo. It forces you to face the things you've been outrunning. The habits, the insecurities, the unresolved emotions. It's in those still moments that the questions start to rise. Who am I really? What do I want? What's holding me back? These aren't questions you answer in a group chat. These are answers you find by sitting with the discomfort, not running from it. Growth in the quiet isn't about isolation. It's about tuning in. It's about getting clear on what's noise and what's truth. You can't hear your own voice when the world is shouting over it. So you pull back. You say no more often. You choose solitude not because you don't need people, but because you need to know yourself first. And that kind of knowing can't be rushed. It's waking up early, not for a post, but for your peace. It's writing things down that won't ever be read aloud. It's failing in private, adjusting, trying again, and keeping it to yourself. It's reading books, having hard conversations with yourself, building routines that no one claps for. There's no instant gratification in the quiet, only slow, steady returns. And with time, you start to change. Not in a way that the world will always notice, but in the way you carry yourself, in the decisions you make, in the things you no longer chase. You stop needing validation. You stop seeking noise. You start protecting your time, your mind, your energy. When growth is real, it doesn't scream. It doesn't need to. You'll find yourself walking away from chaos, not needing to win every argument, not needing to prove your worth. You'll feel the shift, subtle, strong, as you become someone who responds instead of reacts, who observes instead of absorbs, who builds instead of begs. The quiet becomes a companion, not a punishment, a place where reflection becomes fuel, where awareness turns into action, where you stop repeating the same cycles because now you recognize them before they begin. There's power in those silent seasons. The ones where nothing looks like it's happening from the outside, but everything is happening on the inside. Where your world may look still, but underground the roots are going deep. We live in a time where everyone is expected to have a take, a comment, a comeback. Every opinion demands a counter opinion. Every slight, real or imagined, seems to ask for a response. But here's the truth that most people learn too late. Not everything deserves your reaction. Energy is expensive, attention is a currency, and not every situation, person, or comment is worth spending either on. When you react to everything, you give your power away in pieces, to strangers, to noise, to situations designed to pull you out of alignment. Every time you let someone push your buttons, they're the one in control. And whether you agree with them or not, they're steering your emotional state. The strongest version of you doesn't need to respond to every provocation. It doesn't jump at every insult. It doesn't rush to correct every misconception. Sometimes the most powerful move is silence, not because you're weak, but because you've learned the cost of reacting to things that don't matter in the long run. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is immediate, it's emotional, it's impulsive, it wants to win the moment. Response, on the other hand, is thoughtful, it's intentional. It's rooted in clarity, not ego. And sometimes the most intentional response is choosing to walk away entirely. Letting things pass doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about your peace than your pride. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your thoughts, or your truth. Just because someone throws a spark doesn't mean you have to start a fire. Just because someone's loud doesn't mean they're right. And just because something is public doesn't make it personal. People will project. They'll misunderstand you. They'll twist your words, your silence, your growth. But their noise doesn't define you, your response does. And sometimes your refusal to engage is the clearest message you can send. There's maturity in restraint. There's wisdom in knowing when to engage and when to preserve your energy. You start realizing that being right is not always the goal. Protecting your peace is. You stop showing up to battles that don't serve you. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to not hearing you. You stop defending your choices when you know they're grounded in your values. Silence isn't weakness. It's a filter. It shows what's worth your time, what's simply trying to steal it. When you react less, you see more. You notice patterns. You spot manipulation. You understand motive. And you start choosing presence over provocation. You don't need to defend yourself in every room. You don't need to fix every misunderstanding. Some things resolve themselves with time. Some things fade because you didn't feed them. And some people only speak louder when you stop listening. Let the noise pass. Let the moment pass. Let the ego sit down for once. Because when you stop reacting, you start responding to something bigger. Your self-talk is easy. It costs nothing to say what you're going to do, who you're going to be, or how things are going to change. But the thing about words is they're weightless until backed by action. Promises sound good. Plans sound better. But none of them mean anything until movement enters the picture. In a world full of noise, action is the only thing that cuts through. We've all heard people say one thing and do another. Some say they're committed, but never follow through. Some say they've changed, but keep repeating the same cycles. And others talk endlessly about ambition, growth, discipline, but it never shows up in how they move. The difference between dreams and delusion is simple action. Without it, everything else is just a performance. Letting your actions speak louder means letting your consistency speak for you. It means choosing to show up when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when no one is validating your progress. It's doing the work in silence and letting the results echo later. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because what you're building is real. Quiet, focused, and real. This approach isn't glamorous. It doesn't get instant applause. It doesn't give you the quick high that comes from public recognition, but it gives you something better, credibility. Integrity, a reputation that doesn't rely on how well you talk, but on how well you execute. When you let your actions lead, you stop needing to convince people. You stop needing to explain your vision, justify your decisions, or argue for your worth. You just move, you just build, and over time, people see it, they feel it. They trust it. Not because you told them, but because you showed them. That's the kind of presence that lasts. There's strength in silence when you're putting in work. There's something deeply grounded about people who are building without broadcasting. Their foundation gets stronger while others are still trying to get attention. While the world argues about direction, they're already halfway there. One foot in front of the other every single day. And yes, there will be people who question you. People who underestimate you because you're not loud, because you're not flashy, because you're not constantly talking about your goals. Let them. That's part of the process. Because eventually, the results speak louder than anything you could say in your defense. It's a long game. It takes patience. You don't get instant gratification when your focus is on the work and not the applause. But what you do get is respect, first from yourself, then from others. Because deep down, people always recognize the real ones. The quiet workers, the ones who said less and did more. You stop needing to announce every move because you're too busy making the next one. You stop reacting to every opinion because your work is your response. You stop proving yourself with words because your actions have already done it for you. There's a reason silence makes people uncomfortable. In a world built on speed, sound, and instant replies, being quiet feels unnatural. But silence isn't emptiness, it's space. And in that space, something powerful happens. You start to hear things you couldn't before. Not just with your ears, but with your mind, your intuition, your understanding. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. They hear a few words, then rush to fill the silence with their opinion, their story, their perspective. But when you hold back, when you stop trying to dominate the conversation or prove your point, you begin to notice what's actually being said. And just as importantly, what's not. The less you speak, the more you observe. You pick up on tone, energy, pauses, contradictions. You start to see behind the words people use their motives, insecurities, fears. And that's where real understanding lies, not in the words, but in the space between them. There's a kind of clarity that only shows up in stillness. When you're quiet, you give yourself room to absorb more than just surface-level facts. You notice patterns in your environment, behaviors in others, shifts in your own thinking. You start catching the lessons life's been trying to teach you all along, the ones that get drowned out by constant talking. Being quiet doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean you don't have opinions or that you're holding back out of fear. It means you're choosing presence over performance. Listening over ego, learning over proving. You're gathering information, not handing it away. And when you do speak, it actually means something because it comes from intention, not impulse. In the quiet, you also hear yourself more clearly. The inner voice that gets muted by the noise of the world begins to speak up. You become more honest with yourself about what you want, what you feel, what needs to change. And because you're not busy constantly reacting or projecting, you begin to respond from a deeper place. One that's grounded in self-awareness, not emotion. People who talk less often end up being the ones others listen to most. Not because they have more to say, but because they speak when it matters. Their words carry weight because they're not thrown around lightly. They've earned the silence that surrounds them. And when they break it, people pay attention. Conversations change when you stop trying to win them. Relationships deepen when you stop trying to control them. Rooms shift when you walk in with the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to be the loudest to be the most impactful. Listening is an art. It's a skill. And it's one of the fastest ways to grow, personally, professionally, emotionally. When you speak less, you learn more. You absorb wisdom, not just noise. You understand people, not just what they present. You start to move differently because you know more than what's on the surface. There's a quiet kind of power in understanding that your journey is yours alone. In a world that constantly wants to measure you against someone else, staying in your lane and moving at your pace is a radical act of self-respect. You weren't built to compete with everyone. You were built to evolve, and that evolution doesn't follow someone else's timeline. Comparison is a thief, and it doesn't just steal joy, it steals focus. The moment you start watching someone else's path too closely, you start drifting from your own. You begin questioning your pace, doubting your direction, second, guessing decisions that once felt right. All because someone else got there faster, or made it look easier, or got more applause along the way. But the truth is, no one's timeline is perfect. No one's story is as smooth as it looks from the outside. Social media, small talk, highlight reels, they show the wins, not the struggle. They don't show the nights people doubted themselves, the plans that fell through, the moments they nearly gave up. You don't see the whole road, just a snapshot. And trying to keep up with a snapshot is a guaranteed way to burn out. Your lane is where your energy belongs. It's where your focus thrives. It's the only place where you can move with clarity because it's the only path designed specifically for you. It's not about being ahead or behind. It's about being aligned with your values, your purpose, your season of life. Pace matters just as much as direction. You can be heading the right way, but if you're trying to sprint when you should be walking, you'll crash. Growth isn't always fast. Healing isn't always linear. Success doesn't always come when you expect it. Some things take time, not because you're failing, but because you're building something solid, something real. And real takes time. There will always be someone younger doing more, someone older doing better, someone louder getting noticed, but none of them have your exact path. None of them have your exact lessons to learn, your exact mountain to climb, your exact timing to trust. You weren't meant to arrive at the same place at the same time as everyone else. When you honor your own rhythm, life stops feeling like a race. You start taking deeper breaths. You start noticing progress in places you used to overlook. You find pride in the small wins, the kind that don't get posted but mean something real to you. You become less reactive, more intentional. You stop moving out of pressure and start moving out of purpose. Staying in your lane doesn't mean isolation. It means ownership. It means knowing when to cheer others on without losing sight of your own path. It means trusting your process even when it's slow, especially when it's slow. Because sometimes the slow seasons are where the strongest foundations are built.